know I had a broken ankle, I understand.
Thank you. I don't sit down. It's a wheelie chair. I can't sit in a chair with wheels. I'll fall on the floor. No, I'm okay. Thank you so much for helping. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. You've welcome again, and you've got 5 minutes, and I'll give you a 1-minute warning.
All right, so basically the topic is sexual harassment, and our chief of police has said he's reviewed the policy. He finds nothing wrong. It's an expectation of what we think should be correct and helpful to the employees of the police force. If this was true and there was nothing wrong, then we wouldn't open up our newspapers to see everyone complaining and saying they've been sexually harassed. And we wouldn't have had Shelley Carroll sitting over there on the board telling us that numerous people have called her office complaining, employees of the police force, they are sexually harassed. I maintain that this has not been done properly. So the chief of police has looked at the policy. I'm sure there's a written policy, and he's looked at it. This does not tell us that it's being carried out properly and that there are no problems. It just tells us that in writing, the policy seems to be best practice. I understand that, but it's not about what's in writing, it's about what is happening. And I've said this numerous times on other topics. I don't care what we have in writing, it's what is happening. And what's happening is that police women are complaining, are calling counselors and going to the newspaper, calling the Human Rights Commission and appearing there and saying they've been harassed. Harassment is abuse. It's a form of abuse. One minute, please. People who have never been harassed don't understand how horrible it is. I want the chief of police to take this more seriously. It's not good enough to be the chief and say, our policy is okay. Of course it's okay. If it wasn't okay, people would have said they wanted it changed. It is not being carried out. I want you to speak to complainants and ask them what's wrong. What's wrong? How about a survey of the police women? How about somebody ask them, are they okay? An anonymous survey. What's wrong with you? Do you have something you want to say? Don't sign your name, just hand it in. Please, Chief Saunders.
Thank you, Brenda. Any questions for Brenda? Okay, thank you very much. There is one more deputy here, and it's Dion Renee.
Dion, do you mind if I stay here? I'll give it to you. I can't sit in it. May I stand with you? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Thank
Here's
you.
a little more water in case you run out.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you.
It was wonderful.
Thank you.
God bless.
I do need those papers for
Oh,
the
you need
next
those
step.
space? Sorry, I thought.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry about that.
Just gonna move this over a little bit.
It's Brenda, right?
Oh, thank
Okay,
you.
there you go.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you.
Okay, Dion, you know the rules, 5 minutes.
So I am surprised that at least the women on this board said nothing about the last report as it pertains to the police chief and the role of reporting SIU investigations, which do include sexual assaults. And I'm still wondering why this board hasn't asked why that's not included in the background and purpose, in particular towards the women of this board, that you would appreciate that men who primarily make up, who are sitting at this table, overlook or oversee or ignore issues that affect women, in particular sexual assaults. So it is troubling to me that voices are not being heard, that voices are not being spoken up, and it's not being evident and public to members of the public where these positions stand. And that would also go for towards members of the service who are women, who know that these things take place. It's not captured in this information, and it's incumbent on you to raise these things. The question is, I'm wondering if you're raising these things and you're overruled by some other subjective positions that doesn't allow you to be heard. And that leads us to these issues of complaints with regards to sexual assaults and harassment by members of the service, and whether or not there is an accountability measure as to whether or not claims or complaints are taken seriously, are identified by the force and changed with regards to the environment, the work environment, the culture in which officers are forced to be in, and the harassment and bullying that does take place. We wouldn't have such a policy if these things were not affecting members of the force. They affect men as well. There are terms and words used to harass and slander individuals that's not captured in here, language that's being used against both genders, and even to try to pacify situations. So for me, when I read this report, there's a lot of information absent, again, as a member of the public, wanting to be informed how our members of the service are being protected under these policies. On page 2, there is an indicator for routine order 2016.08.29-0955. When I tried to find it, I couldn't. And I'm wondering why, when you make references such as these, we've raised these issues in the past. I know we've raised it in 2015 because I raised it directly. Why, when you're making a recommendation or identifying a reference, that you're not going to include it in the documentation so that anyone attending here or anyone reviewing online can follow and understand and appreciate what you're actually identifying? So to this date, I still don't know what that reference is. I can't even ask questions about it because I'm not informed. And so if you're showing me something, I'm wondering whether the members of the service are being rightly informed as well. Sexual assault is one where individuals who are assaulted are usually traumatized. And in being traumatized, and especially if you're a member of the service and you're having to conduct your duties and fulfill your obligations, pay your bills, take care of your family, it's this attitude sometimes, a culture of thinking, oh, suck it up, it's just a joke. And if somebody doesn't take it as a joke, and rightly shouldn't, how does this board assess whether or not these things are dealt with? Or are you also dismissive in agreeing that it was just a joke, or it was just, it was an accident, or being dismissive of what was actually said? My concern, based on how you've ignored that sexual assault is part of the SIAU's mandate in that reporting, leads me to be troubled about how this board is assessing members of the service who actually make complaints about harassment and sexual assault. So I'm, again, asking the board the same questions I've asked before. Where's the accountability? How are you assessing the accuracy? How are you assessing whether or not people are getting the help that they need, and whether or not these things, policy changes or cultural changes, are being effective or effected?
Dion, thank you. Colleagues, questions? Chief's point is a good one. We refer to routine order on that number. Is there a way that someone can access it?
Just let me check. Can you refer me to what page?
It's it's page 2 of the report, and it's halfway down where it starts the paragraph in order to ensure compliance. And halfway, you've got routine order 2016 0829-0955.
Yeah, that's an internal mechanism of messaging that we utilize to the all staff members, sworn and civilian, right across the board. Yeah.
There's nothing confidential about it, presumably.
There are some things that
Okay.
will give up I don't want to give up portions of the playbook of what we do and when we do what we do. And I can certainly have a look to see if things like this in the future can be reframed. I'm not necessarily
Yeah,
sure.
because I-
What the point that we're trying to make is that we communicate to every member of the service. It's a mechanism that we use to do that, and that's what we are communicating. In the future, we can just exclude that and say we communicate to all members of the service, and this is what we do to avoid any type of confusion which may take place.
That's better, because I agree with Ms. Renee that when you refer to something, what is it? It brings the question that we should be able to see it unless it's something that pertains to the confidentiality of the service.
No, I can see the confusion. We were just trying to make sure that the board knew and we were held accountable, that we had a reference point to say, we are communicating to people, and it's not lip service, but we can validate it by going to here if we need to validate that to you. But I can see the confusion from the public lens, and we'll definitely improve on that.
And when it's something like this, if you review it, and it is something that isn't, an insight into something that would be inappropriate, we should make it available.
Chances are, to avoid confusion in the future, I won't use it. I'll just basically say we've communicated to you, and then just to stop it from there, rather than starting to pull more segments of what we're trying to get across to an internal audience only.
Colleagues, any other questions? John, thank you very much.
So is there a way for us to hear today what that reference is? Isn't that what you just asked?
This is a order that was put out in 2016. It would take some time
Right.
to find it. We'd have to manually go through it.
But
to
what
find
he's
it.
saying is there is an order that complies with what we're asking. You want the substance of it. He says he doesn't have it right now, but it is, his answer will be in future, yes, we do this, et cetera. So, but I take your point that where we make a reference to something, it should be available for people to see. Otherwise, what's the point?
Wouldn't it be fair then, Chair Pringles, to suspend this reporting until that's clear to everybody? Because rightly, we don't have the ability to ask about something we cannot see. And it wouldn't be fair for this board to approve something without the clarity that everybody has access to raise issues on.
Barb, do you want to weigh in?
So the chief is absolutely right. This is an internal means by which we communicate to our members. So the change that came in the Occupational Health and Safety Act was that it added to workplace harassment the idea of sexual harassment, now part of workplace harassment. We communicated that change, that the definition of workplace harassment had expanded to include sexual harassment as well. And that's the substance of the communication.
And that's the substance of this communication, which is recorded by a number in 2016. Okay.
Just that it's
So,
expanded?
okay, yeah. Dion, thank you very much. Colleagues, any other questions of the chief?
Excuse me, Chairman Pringle, we haven't ruled on whether or not we are going to revisit the question and find out, although the policy sounds good, is it actually being carried out?
I'm just asking my colleagues now, we've had your input, for which we thank you. We're now going to discuss the issue. I've just asked our colleagues if there are any questions they have for clarification of the service. If not, we're going